Hello, 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 and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about characteristics of purposeful versus non-purposeful relationships, okay? And for those of you who don't know me, maybe a bit unfamiliar with me, I'm just going to do a very quick introduction to myself for you all. So my name is Nina Dafe, and I'm the founder and the editor of the Far Above Rubies Collection.com, where I basically help amazing Christian women to know their worth, their power, and their purpose so that they may speak up, step out, and shine as the awesome women of God that He created them to be. All right. And, normally I will start off by talking about what kind of got me thinking along these lines. But first, I want to just address the elephant in the room. And yes, it actually required a Nigerian accent. Do you see this? Do you see this? Yeah, I have acquired a friend since we last met. Right on my nose. It would appear I've become a rhino. Literally, I had to gear myself up to get on camera. I was a bit like, oh Lord, I know you got a message that you kind of want to, say through me to your people, but do you see this? So I hope you know how much I love you guys and how much I value you and the mission and the vision that God has given me. Because if not for that, I would not be on camera right now. I'm telling you that right now, right now, okay? And so the prayer right now, Lord, before I even get started, is to take away all nerves, all self-consciousness, and yeah, just all of that sort of jazz, and speak through me. As I always say, you increase, let me decrease, have your way, let me say what the people need to hear, okay? So, characteristics of purposeful versus non-purposeful relationships. I feel like the last few weeks we've been talking a lot about relationships, right? Right from the beginning, where I talked about how to keep your light burning, versus last week when I talked about how to set healthy boundaries within relationships. Like, there's been a lot of relationship talk, and I think kind of as I've been talking about all of these different things, implicitly, I've kind of implied what a healthy relationship versus a non-healthy or purposeful relationship looks like. But I really wanted to make that clear, because I know that all of the people within the Far Above Rubies collective, this community, we are all women and people of purpose. And because of that, we really need to have the right relationships around us. Because as I started off by saying, the great Cindy Trim says that our purpose literally rises and falls off of the relationships that we have in our lives. If we have the wrong relationships, we end up in the wrong place, and vice versa. And so we really, I think, just need to kind of get this straight, okay? So I'm going to jump right in. For those of you who are joining right now, I want to say hello and welcome. And yeah, say hi back. Let me know you're with me. Let's make this as interactive as possible. All right. So healthy relationships or purposeful relationships, they're mutually beneficial. Okay, so if we think about the story that we have been studying the last few weeks, which is at the beginning of Matthew 25, the parable of the 10 virgins, like we know that basically there's a lot in this story about, relationships, how to set boundaries and stuff like that. As a very quick summary for those of you who may not know the story, the parable of the 10 virgins is basically about a group of women who went out in the middle of the night to go and meet the bridegroom, who was about to get married. They were part of his procession. It was expected in the days of Jesus that if you're going to be, the bridesmaids, I guess, that, you would do like a stopover overnight, supply your own oil lamp and oil, basically. What ended up happening is that there was a bit of a delay with the bridegroom coming to lead them to the wedding. And by the time there was a shout and a cry that said, hey, the bridegroom is on his way, 5 of the virgins, which Jesus describes as wise, had enough oil. whereas 5 of them did not. The 5 who did not basically tried to say to those who did have oil, hey, give us some of your oil. The wise virgins basically said no, because if we do that, then we're going to run out of oil and then we're both going to be stuffed. So you go to the shop, you go buy some oil, and hopefully we can all go to the wedding. The 5 go to get oil. The wise virgins who do have oil basically follow the bridegroom into the wedding. By the time the foolish virgins get themselves together and knock at the door and say, Lord, Lord, let us in, he's like, depart from me, I know you not. Okay. And so from this story, where I got the mutual beneficialness of purposeful relationships is that, as I was saying last week, the purpose of these virgins was basically to be there for the bride and the groom, to be a part of the procession. And we see a mutual beneficial relationship in play between the 5 wise virgins and the bridegroom. So in that, the fact that the 5 wise virgins basically have their lamps, they can light their path, but they needed the bridegroom basically to show them the way. And so where one had, one thing to offer, the other had another thing to offer. And so they basically meshed very well together and completed each other in order to be able to, fulfill the ultimate purpose, which was to, get to this hypothetical wedding. And so that's what purposeful relationships do. They are the type of relationships that serve both parties well. They're the type of relationships where you can have a conversation and walk away feeling energized. You can have a conversation and walk away with new ideas. You feed each other, you sustain each other. It's very give and take and not one-sided, okay? Because you both supply each other's needs, like where one falls short, i.e. having the way versus having the light, the other one is basically able to fit in, yeah? Whereas with relationships that are not purposeful, like with the foolish virgins, they sap, they deplete. They're the sort of people you get into conversation with and actually they just kind of take your energy and, they're maybe not so encouraging. So whereas you might be a woman of purpose who has ideas, a business that you want to get off the ground, these are the sorts of people who might kind of scoff at your ideas, not very supportive, but then they come with their entitlement once things are actually going well and they're like, hey, give me, just like the foolish virgins did, rather than supporting you in your journey and along the way, like the wise virgins did with the bridegroom. Does that make sense? If it does, as I said, make this interactive, type in the comments and let me know. Okay, so there's that. So purposeful relationships, mutually beneficial. Non-purposeful relationships, sap. They don't add to your purpose at all. Okay, they probably deplete and take away from it. The second thing, so in purposeful relationships, they don't kind of tell you what you want to hear. There's a bit in the Bible, I believe it's in Proverbs, where it says, better the bruises of a friend than the kiss of an enemy, which is basically to say it's better that someone tells you in love that you're wrong or no, or this is not for you, or whatever the case may be. Something that might hurt your feelings in the short term, but serve you in the long term, rather than people who might be yes people, but to the point of your detriment or to your demise. Now, we see that in the relationship with the wise virgins versus the foolish virgins. As I said, the wise virgins said no to the foolish virgins when they realized that they were about to sap from them and deplete them and sabotage potentially their purpose, which was ultimately to serve the bride and the bridegroom and get to this wedding. And so what they did was they told the foolish virgins no, but not only told them no, they, like I said last week, they connected them back to source. They told them where they could go and get oil for themselves in order to raise themselves up. They were not willing to, I guess, jump to their demise and lower themselves to the position of the foolish virgins. And I feel like that's what purposeful relationships do. Purposeful relationships, I talked about, sometimes having conversations where you walk away energized, edified, etc., etc. Sometimes in a purposeful relationship, these are the people who might tell you some home truths about yourself, which in the moment might hurt or might bruise your ego a little bit, or whatever the case may be. But when you reflect on it in the long term, it's going to serve you well. Okay. Whereas in a non-purposeful relationship, not only do they sap from you, they tend to be yes people. They tend to be the people who don't necessarily want to tell you no or set boundaries or tell you that what you're doing is wrong, even if it's detrimental to you, because maybe they're afraid, for example, that they might no longer be able to kind of take advantage of whatever benefits it is that they're getting from you. So they will continue to stroke your ego, continue to see you do things that might actually be a bit foolish because it actually serves them. Whereas people who are purposeful, they're not relying on you as their meal ticket anyway, and so it's not going to cost them anything to actually tell you no, to set a boundary, to correct you in love, because hey, as much as that you're mutually beneficial, they know that their purpose is going to remain very much intact. They just want to see you win, and they're willing to tell you a few home truths to make sure that happens. Okay. Now, if we go to the third difference between purposeful versus non-purposeful relationships. So purposeful relationships push you towards your purpose. Okay. So for example, as I said in the very beginning, whereas when we see the relationship between the bridegroom and the wise virgins, like they very much meshed together very well, and in pushing each other towards what was the ultimate, I guess, destination, which was to get to the wedding. They had the whole group of the wise virgins who, this is my lamp, by the way, figuratively, I'm not just holding up a Black Panther fist, but you had basically, the virgins who were holding up lamps, lighting the way, and then you had the bridegroom who was showing them the way. So they were both working together in order to get towards your purpose. So in a purposeful relationship, you'll typically find that they tend to be collaborative in some way, and they're collaborative without competition. There's a synergy basically that goes with them. And what synergy is when basically you get a group of people that work together in such a way that they actually achieve greater results than they would have if they were working separately. Okay, so that's what purposeful relationships do. It does. It basically, it creates synergy. It's collaborative. There's no jealousy. One of you is not resentful of one for having a lamp and thinking, why don't I have a lamp? And the other one's thinking, well, she knows the way, why don't I know the way? No, everyone stays in their lane, works within their specific talent, but they join forces for the same goal, for the same purpose, in order to, bring it all together. Okay, that's how purposeful relationships work. Whereas a non-purposeful relationship is basically going to sabotage purpose. Those basically are the opposite of the purposeful relationships. They tend to be the ones where there is jealousy, where there is envy, where there is strife, where it's more of a competition and, you know, trying to outdo each other. And we know that where there's strife and one person trying to outdo another and this, that, and the other, then there's no synergy. You know, the Bible says that a house divided against itself is going to fall, you know. And so it's very, very important to recognize people's motives and recognize the people who are around you. Yeah. So number one, you know, is there a mutual benefit? Is it give and take, or do you find that you are constantly being sapped and drained from because it's actually one-sided and only one person is winning and it doesn't happen to be you? Yeah. You know, number two, you know, do you have a bunch of yes people around you, people who are afraid to contradict you or say, well, have you thought about it this way, or, you know, could you do it that way, versus people who are not afraid to maybe get in your face and tell you no, or set a boundary, or caution you for the sake of seeing you go down the right path, you know, and fulfill the purpose that God has given you so that you can actually bring it to light, you know. And number three, do the relationships around you push you towards your purpose? You know, do you have people around you that you can collaborate with, that you can create synergy with, people who are willing to share their skills, their talents, their network with you, in order to see you win? And vice versa, you know, so that everybody wins, going back to that whole point of mutually beneficial. Yeah. If you do, then that's a purposeful relationship. But if you've got somebody who is in competition with you, doesn't want to see you win, you know, would throw you under a bus in order to be able to claim all the glory, and, you know, is not a team player and all of that sort of jazz, then it's a non-purposeful relationship, in the sense that it's not serving the purpose that God has given you. And you might need to create a boundary there, as we talked about, or later on in the story, as Jesus, you know, because Jesus is basically the bridegroom is symbolism for Jesus. Yeah. So as the bridegroom or Jesus went on to do in the story, you may need to shut some doors and say, hey, depart from me, I know you not, you know, you're not the sort of person that I need or want in my life, according to the purpose that God has drawn up for it. We need to have the wisdom to know when it's time to do that, okay? So the fourth difference between purposeful versus non-purposeful relationships is that purposeful relationships don't just push you towards your purpose, they also push you towards your goals, okay? Sorry, not purpose and goals. They don't just push you towards your purpose, they push you towards God, because purpose and goals are the same thing, right? Right. So they push you towards God. Okay. So if you have a God-given purpose, then obviously that's the mission, that's the vision that God basically put you on this earth to do. Each and every one of us are born significant. We have a purpose. And once we're walking in it and submitting to God in order to bring this thing to pass, that's actually worship. Worship is not just singing and praise dancing. Worship is actually how you live your life in submission to God. Okay. And so if you've got people who are willing to not serve you, but serve the vision in order to collaborate with you, you know, who are willing to join forces with you, who are willing to correct you and not just be yes people and all of that sort of jazz. And it's all for the purpose of seeing the vision that God has put in you come to pass, then they are ultimately also drawing you closer to God. Yeah. And not only that, you want the people around you. Yeah, I mean, faith without actions is dead. So you want the people around you who can give you the practical steps in order to actually build your mission and vision. But you also want the people around you who are going to be able to say to you, but have you prayed? But have you sought God? Have you done that? Because as the Bible says, except God builds a building or the temple or whatever it is, it crumbles, it falls to the ground, right? So it's important that we are not just I guess, in this framework of work, 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 but we are constantly drawing on our faith, just like we were talking about, and the Holy Spirit. So, just like we were talking about a few weeks ago with the oil, the anointing, all of that sort of stuff, like all of that is important. Whereas in a non purposeful relationship, typically they're distractions, typically they're full of drama, or they lead you to do or be around things that are ultimately going to take you off of the path of your purpose. And I would say that being on the path of your purpose and serving God, I think they tend to be synonymous, if I'm honest with you. So if someone has the power to sabotage your purpose and take you off of purpose, then they are probably also taking you off the road of being obedient and submissive and surrendering to God in order to bring it about. Okay, so that's the fourth thing. And number 5 is that purposeful relationships mentor you. They take you somewhere that you've never been before. They show you the way. Where did I get that from? If we go back to the relationship between the 5 wise virgins and the bridegroom, as I said, the virgins had their light and they had their lamp, but they couldn't get to the wedding or the destination without the bridegroom. They needed the bridegroom to show them the way and to lead the procession into that building. We are the same way. If we are women of purpose, if we're women who maybe have visions to start businesses, if we're women who are entrepreneurial or whatever the case may be, then sis, we need to know that we can't do this by ourselves. Even Jesus had a squad. Yeah, when he got ready to pursue and follow his mission and vision at 33 years old, the first thing that he did after getting baptized and spending time with God was put his team together. Okay, and not only did he put his team together, like I said, in being baptized, he went to John the Baptist, who'd been prophesying and doing things before he did. He submitted to authority, not just the authority of God, but actually the authority of man, even unto death. Because don't forget, Jesus actually allowed himself to die and be put under the authority of man, to be nailed to the cross. And so it's the same with us as well, that when we are fulfilling purpose and doing all of these things, we need to know who our peers are and who we can collaborate with and all those sort of things, as I mentioned in, what was it, point number 3 or 4. But we also need to be able to seek wise counsel. We need to be able to approach and speak to people who have done what we want to do and have gone before us. Like, if we don't do that, we're like the foolish virgins. Basically, with our dim lights, we might have some semblance of idea, but only a little. So that's our dim light, or no light at all, because we're about to basically diminish it all with the energy that we're using to try and find the way. When actually, if you get yourself a mentor, immediately, you've got like a straight shooting way to get to where you want to go. You're not making the same mistakes. He can say, oh, wait, beware of that, or, oh, okay, you need to do this instead. Yeah. So that's also a part of wisdom, and being like the wise virgins is not just, having a group of people who you can collaborate with in order to shine your light brighter, but actually also having someone around you to mentor you. Whereas in a purposeless relationship or a non-purposeful relationship, they would basically keep you stagnant. They can't take you very much further because they haven't been there themselves. One of my favorite sermons comes from TD Jakes. TD Jakes, I love. I literally watch him. I stream him every single Sunday. But years and years ago, he shared a sermon about Ruth. And you guys know already that I loved that sermon because it was about a woman of the Bible, right? But what I will never forget is he talks about the fact that Ruth gleaned behind the reapers. And what he meant by that is that when she was learning how to make money for herself or glean the corn, Boaz basically told her to follow behind the reapers, his personal hired help, and that, whatever, kernels they dropped, she should just basically pick them off the ground and put them into her basket. And without even knowing, that he didn't tell her this, but he actually told the men to drop some for her on purpose. While she was learning how to actually glean the corn and everything herself. But TD Jakes basically used that analogy to say that you can't go further than your mentor. And that if you're following someone, and you need to really make sure that whoever you're following has actually gone to the place that you want to go. Otherwise, you're going to stagnate, and it's just not going to work. And so that's something that has really, really stuck with me, the importance literally of gleaning behind the reapers. And as you follow your purpose, as you follow your path, if you are collaborating with other people, as I said, one person might have one area of expertise, whereas you have another. You might be on the same level and you might be peers, but because that person maybe has a gift that you don't, they're teaching you, they're mentoring you, they're elevating you already, and vice versa, which is why it's mutually beneficial. Whereas a mentor is going to be on a completely different plane, a completely different level to you and your peers. And so that's going to be the thing to basically up level you and bring you forward to where you need to go. All right. So I hope that was really, really clear. I thought it was very important to do this video to really clarify, I guess, leading on from what we talked about last week with the whole setting of boundaries, exactly the sort of relationships that you should actually be setting boundaries with, and which are the types of relationships that you should be going towards and feeding and watering. Okay, so I hope that was useful. I hope it blessed you. I hope also that you don't just watch this video and just kind of click off and go away. Like, I really also want you to think about these 5-10 points, depending on how you look at it, and actually examine the relationships in your life and really think about, okay, which ones are the ones specifically that feed my purpose and that I need to continue to invest in, and which are the ones that actually don't, and that perhaps I might need to set a boundary there, or else in some cases shut the door on, like the bridegroom did in the story. All right, so approach it prayerfully, literally ask God to reveal it to you, and once he does, be obedient. Act. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Okay, and so yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now, and of course, and as usual, we shall join each other again next Wednesday. But do me a favor, for those of you who stuck with me, thank you very much. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if it spoke to you, then feel free to like it. If you can think of somebody who needs to hear this, then share. As I always say, freely you have received, so freely give. And also comment below. Let me know what your biggest aha moments were, what your takeaways were. As I say, I'm always very interactive, so even if you do it after I've clicked off, I will be typing back. Okay, let's keep this conversation flowing. Yes. And one more thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, then also press the subscribe button, and not just the subscribe button, but the notification button, because what that will do is basically allow you to access all the other videos that I upload, which is usually once or twice a week, but it will also notify you whenever I do upload a video. So if you've enjoyed this, I'm sure you're going to enjoy all the rest of the other ones. So I beg, just press the button. So I'm in a weird mood, forgive me guys. But yeah, Until next time, guys, take care. We'll speak again and enjoy the rest of your week. All right? Bye.